Welcome to Showing Up Anyway, the podcast for people who are not perfect. On this show, we talk about intuitive eating, fitness without obsession, and healing your relationship with food and your body. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Showing Up Anyway. We took a little bit of a break, a little 2-week hiatus, but I am back today, and I brought a special guest with me. This is one of my coaches, Heather Jones. And Coach Heather and I have been working together for like 3 years now, I think a little longer than that, which is just incredible. She is the absolute best. Ask any of our clients. And I'm super happy to have her. Heather's been coaching for a number of years and is a mother and is currently pregnant. I'm not allowed to announce that right at this point.
I've already announced it on socials.
Okay. Phew. So anyway, I thought, given the circumstances, that we would talk about pregnancy today. And so our podcast topic today is going to be pregnancy and parenthood with Coach Heather. So we're going today to start by just talking a little bit about how health and fitness change during pregnancy and what it looks like to navigate healthy habits while pregnant and while raising kids. I wanted to talk a little bit about cravings and movement and energy and mindset and just the realities of parenthood. I thought we'd start with pregnancy. Obviously, that's kind of like the first bit before you become a parent. You become pregnant. So let's talk about what feels different during pregnancy. You know, how your pregnancy has shifted your definition of healthy. Tell me about that experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, everything is different when you get pregnant and it changes through the different trimesters. So for one thing, everyone's pregnancy is different. And so I'm speaking about my, first pregnancy and my second pregnancy, which could be totally different from other people's experiences. But for me, I feel like the first trimester is really challenging when it comes to the changes in your energy and how your energy shifts, where you're using up to 2 times as much energy, just like existing and creating life. And so getting used to the energy shifts and getting used to a lot of the nausea that might happen during your first trimester, and something that you just asked, like the definition of healthy obviously changes during pregnancy, because it's not really a look anymore or a checklist, but more a full picture with greater meaning. Like, you want to be healthy in order to create a healthy environment for your baby. So your meaning behind it is really different.
Do you find that you have to adopt a new sense of flexibility that maybe you didn't have to have before?
Absolutely. I feel like every day is different. Some days you're going to have more energy and it's like, wow, I want to go to the gym. I want to do all the things. And then other days it's like, I can't even hardly get out of bed. And so if you have the same expectations that you had prior to pregnancy, you will drive yourself crazy and you'll feel like a failure. And so you absolutely have to adapt and create a new concept of like, okay, what can I do today? What is my energy level today? And that's going to look different every day during pregnancy.
Tell me a little bit about morning sickness and appetite changes. How do you cope with food aversions and just feeling ill? Obviously, like you mentioned, this is going to be different for everybody, but how was yours?
Mine was rough. And again, this is just my experience, but especially during the first trimester, food aversions are huge for me. I also get super nauseous. And a misconception about morning sickness is that it only happens in the morning. And oftentimes in your first trimester, it could be an all-day, multi-day thing where you're throwing up dozens of times a day, even if you're just drinking water or eating the healthy foods. And so for me, my biggest aversion this time around was water, which was super weird for me because I am a hydration queen. I love my water. And so for me to be so turned off by water, like every time I drink it, feeling like I needed to throw up, I really had to work through that, which was frustrating. So it's different for everyone. And, when we talk to our clients, we talk a lot about listening to your body's cues. And it's the exact same thing during your morning sickness and your aversions. You just do what you can, and your expectations have to be lowered because your environment's shifted.
So how do you decide what to eat when none of your, nutritious options sound good?
Yeah, a very common phrase in like the parenting community is fed is best. And oftentimes they're talking about the baby, but it totally translates to pregnancy as well. Healthy is going to look different, and sometimes you just need to get your calories in. For me, I found that I was most sick in the mornings and in the evenings. And so midday is where I tried to make up for it. Like if everything sounded disgusting in the morning, and so all I could have was plain toast, then in the middle of the day, I would try and get my veggies in. I'd try and get more water in, knowing that in the evening, I would probably want something bland again because I was so nauseous. So trying to balance my day instead of balancing the meals was really helpful for me.
Yeah, I imagine you have to really give yourself a lot of grace around less balanced meals. Every meal is not going to be perfect. You're not going to be able to have protein and fats and carbs and veggies. It's just not going to look like that. It's hard enough to do that when you're not pregnant. How do you deal with cravings and your relationship with food?
Yeah, so lucky for me, I don't have like crazy cravings. I've seen a lot of other pregnant women who have like unhinged things like pickles and ice cream. And like, lucky for me, mine has been more like I want really soft tortillas and I really want fruit and breakfast sandwiches. And so for me, especially being an intuitive eating coach, it's been easy for me to be like, okay, like I can eat what I want and then add the things that I need into this. And I think that other women can definitely do the same thing, where if you're craving that pickles and ice cream, like, hey, there's a veggie and there's a carb, and maybe try and find some protein at a different point in your day and just try to balance the day the best you can around those cravings.
And most importantly, you have to avoid the guilt that often comes with
Yes.
honoring those cravings. I know you've worked with a pregnant person or two. Have you found that that is an obstacle you have to overcome?
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard because, when you're pregnant, you're already emotional and uncomfortable. And so then add guilt into the mix, and it can create a really hard time trying to have a neutral feeling around food. And something that I don't know if this is the correct way to do it, but something for me that's really helped is like, well, this is what the baby wants, and I have to figure out how to make it nutritious because I know that part, but baby is craving this. So I don't know if that's helpful, but for me, it just helped me neutralize food. Like, baby likes ice cream, and that's what we're doing today. So I got to figure out how to fit it in.
Yeah, I like this is like a little mindset shift. I think that's really cool. So how let's move on to movement and exercise. Were there any movements that felt great pre-pregnancy versus while you're pregnant? What feels supportive for your body now? Is it the same stuff? Is it different?
Yeah, I love this question. Before pregnancy, I primarily trained as a power lifter, lifting heavy to improve my bench, squat, deadlift, and I also did some endurance training like cycling and hiking. Pregnancy, for me, my pregnancies have luckily been low risk. It's a little different if you're a higher risk pregnancy. You want to go based off of what your doctor's limitations are. But for me, basically, I was given no limitations other than what is uncomfortable for me. So as a coach, it's helpful to know what sort of changes I can make to those moves. Like for my deadlift example, for example, I can't deadlift conventionally anymore because I'm almost 6 months pregnant and there's a baby in the way. So having to do it sumo and beltless and maybe a little bit lighter just because, we do have to adapt. But I think there's a misconception that being pregnant means you can't lift heavy and you can't continue to do all the things. I've talked to several doctors who say that they have pregnant women who run marathons while they're in their, 6th or 7th month. And it's all about listening to your body at the end of the day. So if it feels comfortable for you, you can continue to do all the things that you love doing. It's just going to feel a little different and your energy is going to be a little different. And that's okay.
Yeah, so for some pregnant people, you're going to need to lower the intensity. I'm sure there are some changes in your balance and
Yeah.
some, discomfort that maybe you have to explore. And what about like safety? You kind of touched on it a little bit, like just like safety considerations. And are there any myths about exercise during pregnancy?
Yeah, I mean, the one I mentioned, that's the biggest one, is that you're not supposed to lift heavy. And there's been some recent studies that have come out that say that lifting heavy during your pregnancy can actually improve the health of the baby and even lead to some cognitive function benefits, which is really interesting. Another misconception is that pregnant women can't run. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of women who continue to run and even run marathons. There are some considerations with safety. My healthcare provider stressed the importance of, balance, like you mentioned before, because your hips are shifting. And so balance is going to feel a little different. So single leg movements, it's still super important that you do them so you continue to improve your balance during pregnancy. But just being aware of your surroundings and knowing, like, okay, if I were to fall, is there a wall that I can, put my hand on and catch myself? Same thing when it comes to like cycling. One adaptation I've had to make, just because the risk of injury from falling during cycling is higher than normal. So making sure that you're not doing downhill cycling, making sure that you're cycling not on a road with cars, but on bike
No
paths, things like
off-roading.
that. Yes, no off-roading. So the limitations more so are making sure that you don't have a risk for injury of the baby or falling, just because that can really put your baby in a situation you don't want.
And then obviously there are a lot of benefits from movement generally, right? Stress relief, sleep, mental health, which are all things that are affected by pregnancy. So a lot of reasons to keep moving. Generally, and you feel free to correct me, but at least this was what I was taught when I was becoming a trainer, was the general rule is if you are pregnant and were exercising before, you can kind of keep doing what you're doing. But if you weren't really exercising and you get pregnant, it's maybe not the time to pick up a bunch of exercise.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So if you were training pretty consistently before, having the same amount of intensity is pretty safe. However, if you weren't consistently working out before, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to avoid movement. In fact, doing mobility, doing stability training, walking are all super great, but it's not the time to pick up powerlifting or like CrossFit. So it's more so the intensity in that way, because your body is shifting and your balance is going to feel different. And so you don't want to be compromised doing things that are new.
Another thing to consider, obviously, is going to be like your energy and your fatigue and to some degree, like your motivation, which is unreliable anyway. But how do you navigate exhaustion while still doing the exercise and the movement and the things that provide you that kind of care?
Yeah, I think rule number one, like first step, is having grace for yourself and understanding that what you're doing is like a crazy feat. When you're pregnant and or breastfeeding, you're burning up to double the amount of energy you normally would. And a lot of research compares this to extreme endurance sports like training or competing in the Tour de France or Ironman races. So understanding that you're already starting out like baseline level exhausted, it gives more perspective for the things that you do during the day. So I think, if you have a little less energy, it's warranted. And then doing what you can on the days where you feel a little bit better. Like today, I feel up for a workout, or today I feel up for maybe a 5-minute walk, and that's the best I can do. Having like radical acceptance of that and being like, wow, my body is doing this insanely incredible thing. And if I can get a few more steps on top of that, that's okay. But I'm already like crushing it as a human. I think that for me has helped mentally be like, okay, like I'm creating a human, and look at me on top of it. I did a 10-minute walk, or I did my workout today because I felt a little better. So your motivation is going to be shifted a little bit.
Yeah. So how do you deal with motivation when it's low?
Me personally, I think having that conversation with myself, like, where is this coming from? Why do I feel like my motivation is low? What's been going on in my day that has made me feel like I can't get to the gym, or I can't do this walk or this workout? And so I think having a more full picture approach, like maybe I didn't sleep great last night because I had crazy cramps and I had to get up and pee 5 times because I'm pregnant. Oh, that makes sense. Like my motivation is, based on environment. It's not what's wrong with me mentally, but it's like, okay, what happened in my environment to make it so I don't feel up to these tasks today?
I think another really big topic that's important to talk about is your mindset around your body, body image and how to, I'd love your opinion on how to like accept body changes and shift your expectations. How do you deal with the emotional ups and downs of watching your body grow and change?
Yeah, that's such a big topic. And, being 100% transparent, this was probably the hardest thing for me to go through during my first pregnancy because I was just newly a personal trainer. I was in the fitness industry. And so, kind of allowing myself to let go of that control over my body and how it looked aesthetically was really hard for me. And it took a lot of work and a lot of therapy. And so I think, again, shifting your mindset to what my body is doing instead of what my body looks like is so crucial during pregnancy because, 9 months may not seem like a lot of time, but when you're sitting in your body that's growing and shifting and changing and having all those aches and pains associated with it at the same time, it feels more like a long distance marathon rather than a sprint. And so you really need to have that mental shift in order to not go insane. And so for me, I think it was so important to be like, wow, my body is creating life and it's a means to an end, and that's okay. And the fact that my body can even do this and that I'm so privileged to be able to create a life is incredible. I can get my autonomy back after and it'll look different, and that's okay. But it's more so thinking of it as like I am adapting and changing to create this life rather than just watching my body shift.
So when it comes to rest and recovery, obviously this is a big part of pregnancy, right? Learning to take it easy when you need to. How do you listen to signals for rest? Things like sleep, like how does that change, and how do you know when you need to move and when you need to not move?
Yeah, I love this topic because it's something that I feel like I have grown a lot in out of necessity for myself. Before pregnancy and having kids, I was very much a go, go, go person. I love doing all the things all the time. Rest was honestly hard for me. And then during pregnancy, it kind of slapped me in the face and it helped me realize, like, oh, wow, this is so important because it's not just about me anymore. It's about this new life that I'm creating. And if I don't rest, it could be detrimental to the baby. And so having that mindset shift of like, okay, it's no longer just about me anymore. I can't just run myself to the ground. There's a, bigger purpose. It helped me understand the importance of rest. And now it's such a big part of my journey in health and fitness because I've been able to come back stronger because of it, really utilizing my rest days, specifically in pregnancy. Like we preach over and over again, it's really listening to your body's cues. There's going to be days where you feel like you need extra rest and you need that 3-hour nap, and that's okay. And then there's other days where you're going to have more energy and taking advantage of that. So really being able to adapt to what your body is telling you is so important to stay sane. Even if you had, that workout planned for today and you feel like you need a nap instead of a workout, being like, okay, this is what my body needs today. Where can I fit this in later in the week when maybe I'm feeling a little bit more rested? So understanding your body's cues and really leaning into that because it's so crucial for not only your health of the baby, and then also after pregnancy, postpartum recovery, rest is so crucial. So I think having the meaning behind it and then being able to adapt your schedule and your choices around it, so important.
Interestingly enough, rest is probably one of the hardest things to get our clients to do.
Yes.
When they are locked in and they want it badly, they don't slow down. And so for pregnant people and non-pregnant people, I think it is really important to remember that rest is a healthy habit. It is a form of self-care, and it is part of the program. It's not a lack of doing something. It's not a lack of being productive. It's just being productive in a different way. Since you started talking about postpartum, let's talk a little bit about the transition from pregnancy to parenthood. Heather, after you gave birth to your daughter, what surprised you about postpartum health? Did your priorities shift when you became a parent? I mean, I assume that's a yes, but just tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big topic, and I could go on and on because your whole life transforms. And, I think nowadays with social media, there's a lot more information out there. A lot more people are talking about their experiences, but still, even with my first pregnancy, I feel like not enough people talk about the toll that birth really takes on your body. And I had a pretty natural, normal birth. So I can't even imagine people who have higher risk and complications, but no one really talks about that first, like the baby coming out of you, what that does on your body and the recovery afterwards, stitches in places, having a hard time getting dressed, all the things is crazy. So I feel like a lot of people focus on like the back or the bounce back culture. And when you're like in those early trenches of postpartum, it's impossible for you to even like comprehend that. So I think just being really patient with yourself, understanding that your body went through something so crazy. So that's first, early trenches of postpartum. And then after that, all of a sudden you have this whole new human that you're just expected to take care of and you should know how to do it. And a lot of that is figuring out like what your baby needs, because all babies are so different and there's a lot of like mental energy, like, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? And so you're just exhausted all the time from that. And then obviously babies don't sleep very well in the beginning, so that's exhausting in and of itself. In a nutshell, it's not about you anymore. You are in charge of this other life, and any free time that you have is because someone else gave you their time, whether that's your partner or whether you paid for a babysitter or childcare. It's somebody else's time now. So you no longer just have free time that's completely yours. So shifting your whole life around this new human is just, I'm having a hard time even putting words to it, but that's the best I can to describe it. It's a huge shift.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too, because you're so right. It's once things shift, it makes self-care, that makes your priorities seemingly less important. And it's really hard to find that balance to still care for yourself.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I do tell my parents, my clients, not my parents, but my clients who are parents, is that, just because your kids come first, it doesn't mean you have to put yourself last. And so, we owe it to our kids. I'm not a parent, but parents owe it to their kids to take care of themselves. But it's challenging. It is absolutely challenging. What are some things you wish you knew the first time around?
Right off the bat, just your experience is entirely your own. I feel like, you hear so often that comparison is the thief of joy, but I would also say that especially in parenthood, comparison will either like make or break your experience and your ability to like come out and succeed with your health and fitness, because social media is so interesting where I've been guilty of this too, where everyone posts the highlights but nobody posts the trenches. And so understanding that like your journey is your own, your timeline is your own, because everyone has different support systems, maternity leaves, financial situations. And so not comparing your early child experience to other people. For one, I wish that I would have known that sooner. I would have thought about it, had more support in that way, because I just saw a lot of like people on TikTok who were posting their like happy little baby experiences and their bounce back experiences. And it's so different, and it's also so fabricated. So that, number one. And then also just radical acceptance of your own experience and really leaning into those early moments with your baby, because you're not going to get those back. They grow so fast. And if you're so focused on bouncing back, losing the baby weight, society's expectations of mothers, that you forget to enjoy the baby and get yourself feeling good enough for those experiences, then you're doing yourself a disservice and you're robbing yourself of, the early times with your baby.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the bounce back mindset, because there is this immense social pressure to bounce back. You see it in media with celebrities. You see it probably with your friends. You probably see it with, anybody wow, they look so good since they had a baby, or they've gained weight since the baby and they haven't been able to lose it. Like you hear about it all the time. What is that pressure like? And I mean, do you feel an immense amount of pressure? Did you, and do you now, being, close to your second child?
Yeah, I feel like everyone, especially women, feels that pressure to some point, just because it is so loud, and it's also a whole market, right? Like they kind of prey on pregnant women's insecurities to market certain products, and so it's like that's a whole nother topic. But for me, I feel like there's been a lot of pressure, especially from the fitness community, because you see all these women who are like, oh, this is my body 1 week postpartum, this is my body 3 months postpartum, this is my body 6 months postpartum. postpartum. And it's so easy to compare yourself to those other women and their experiences when, again, like I said, you could have a totally different life setup than them. And it could be, their full-time job. Whereas for you, you're working a full-time job while taking care of your kid most of the time. So your experience is going to be totally different for one thing. And something that has really helped me with my mindset is thinking of it more as a transformation rather than trying to go back to what I was. Because who I was before, I don't know her anymore. Like, I got a whole ass kid. I've got another one on the way. My life is so different that, like, bouncing back to that is impossible. Even if I had all the time in the world and I could, try, my life is different. My priorities are different. So instead of trying to bounce back to, 25-year-old me who had no cares in the world and had all the time to do fitness, now I want to transform to have my fitness mean something else. So after my first pregnancy and having my wonderful daughter, all of a sudden fitness didn't mean like a picture or a aesthetic, but it was like, I don't want to be a sideline mom. I want to be able to run and do all the things with my kid and have enough energy to keep up with her curiosity and play tag with her at the park and be able to pick her up and protect her if I needed to. So fitness means so many different things than it did when I was 25 back then. And I don't want to bounce back to that because I'm not her anymore. So I think, allowing your fitness to mean something else postpartum is so important, and finding that new meaning, because that motivation is insane. Like, mama bear instincts is awesome. And if you can like put that into your fitness and be like, okay, I'm training to like save my kid from whatever, like, you're unstoppable. So I think leaning into that is so cool. And the fact that women are kind of stuck on this bounce back culture is crazy.
Yeah. See, and this is why I have you on my team, Heather, because we speak the same language. I tell my clients the exact same thing. You cannot go back in time. You are a different person now. Like, you're not only your body, but just your whole life has now changed. You cannot go back to this period of time before pregnancy. That doesn't mean you can't want change or see change, but you're never going to be who you were. Instead, now you're a new person. So let's look forward instead of looking back.
Yep.
So I'm so happy that you spread that. I knew you would, but I'm so happy you spread that same message, because that has to be your mindset. So let's talk about balancing health with being a parent. What is it like to make time for meals and movement while you're raising kids?
Yeah, logistics is a real thing that you have to figure out pretty quickly with a kid. Like I said, all of a sudden you have this child who takes up all your time, and you can't just hop off to the gym whenever you want or spend hours meal prepping. It definitely takes a little bit of planning. For me, I really hit the lottery with my partner, and we really work hand in hand together to come up with a plan every week, and we share responsibilities. But if your life doesn't look like that, just understanding who you can lean on, really trying to figure out what your support system is. And if you don't have a lot of support, from friends or family, trying to find gym communities that do like mommy and me workout classes, or that have childcare facilities, and reaching out to your community in that way for specifically workouts. I think that will really help. Something that me and my husband did in the beginning was we had alternate days. So like Tuesdays and Thursdays were my days to work out, and I knew that and I could count on that. And then he had Mondays and Wednesdays. And so for us, we just built in a system that worked. And I know that'll look different for everyone, but really communicating with your partner or your family or your friends what you need, and being able to lean on people is so important, because again, you need someone else's time in order to make it work for your child, to be cared for during your workouts. And then specifically for meals, I think making it as simple as possible, especially in the beginning, because for one thing, you're going to be sleep deprived, and you're not going to have the same time or mental capacity to meal prep for weeks and weeks on end and spend countless time researching, your meals and going to the grocery store. For us, it was really helpful to lean into simple foods. Like, here's a protein that I can mass cook in 30 minutes and then have in the fridge. And then I can build meals around that using a crock pot, using an air fryer, things that are just easy and simple. Sometimes it looks like toddler plates where we have a pile of chicken, we have our choice of carb, and we have green beans for our veggie, and that's okay. But as long as you're fed and those components are there, really just keeping it simple.
Yeah. How do you adapt your habits, your new or the habits you're looking to instill around nap schedules and school and childcare and things like that? This mysterious husband is Corey, who's one of my other coaches. And yes, you're right. He's just outstanding. And I watch the way that you guys work and the synergy you have with Parenthood, and it's just fantastic. And you guys are both very lucky to have such a great support system. But for people maybe who don't, what advice would you give them about trying to find time?
So we have this phrase that I think started early in the trenches of, parenthood, adapt or die. And so like if your child has a nap schedule that's like pretty consistent, knowing like, okay, for nap number 1, I'm gonna get this workout done. Nap number 2, I'm gonna nap because I'm exhausted. And then nap number 3, maybe I'll do some meal prep. Just having like kind of a plan for yourself, but allowing yourself to adapt, because that kid is going to switch it up on you. They oftentimes will create these habits or routines, I guess, sleep schedules for themselves, or will try and implement something and then they'll like completely 180. So you have to be willing to change and accept like, okay, like that did work for us and now we've just got to find a new routine. Again, finding either a gym that has childcare is really helpful. Leaning on friends and family in the beginning who can maybe bring you some meals. That's going to be really important. And then just really prioritizing sleep for sure.
So how do you adjust for unpredictable sleep with a newborn?
I mean, you do the best you can, having realistic expectations, or you will just drive yourself crazy because you're not going to get your 8 to 10 hours of beauty sleep. It just doesn't exist. If someone tells you that their baby sleeps that way, don't believe them, because then you'll just be angry because yours is not going to sleep that way. But something that really helped us in the beginning is just going to sleep when the baby goes to sleep. Even if it was like 8 p.m. and we wanted to stay up and hang out and watch a movie, whatever, going to sleep right away really helps, because those nighttime wake ups are really rough. Especially for me, I have a really hard time falling back asleep. My husband can fall asleep like that, and I low key hated him for it. For me, I knew that it was going to take me a while to fall back asleep, and so I needed to start my sleep earlier because of that. So going to sleep at 8 p.m. and then having those nighttime wake ups, and then sometimes getting up at like 6 in the morning, and that's just what it was, trying to get a nap in during the day. But your sleep is just going to be different. It's not going to be what you want. It's not going to be ideal, but it will get better eventually. And so there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you just have to radically accept that.
Just got to know it will get better eventually.
Yes.
Well, when it's
Yep.
not, when it's bad, when you're not sleeping, many hours, obviously that's going to affect a lot of your food choices and your mood and your motivation. Any tips for working around that?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I talk to my clients about all the time, even clients who don't have kids, who aren't pregnant. We still have people who suffer from insomnia or who have really rough work schedules that make it hard to get, that ideal 8 hours of sleep. And the sleep is the foundation to everything in health and fitness. And so having sleep that's a little bit more compromised, we just have to understand our expectations are going to be a little different. If there's a night where maybe you get a lot less sleep than other nights, especially if it's with a newborn baby, where like maybe that baby is sick and you didn't sleep most of the night, that's not going to be the day where I'm going to tell myself I'm going to go to the gym and hit a PR on this thing that I've been working towards, because it's just not realistic. So having to adjust expectations and know, okay, today is going to be a rest day because I absolutely need it, and that's okay, but tomorrow we can try again. And just allowing yourself to adapt, because if you are stuck in this rigid routine of expectations for yourself, you're not going to survive, and you're not going to be able to have the fitness or the health that you want during especially those early stages of postpartum and early childhood and parenting. And even people who don't have kids, like I said, you just have to be able to adapt for that and give yourself grace.
So another topic, we got this in a comment on TikTok. Somebody asked me, they mentioned that they know that stress plays an important role in just kind of health and nutrition and weight loss. And they asked, how do I keep my stress low as a stay-at-home mom of 2 kids under 3? So any tips for stress management?
Well, I wouldn't say that you can keep your stress low in that situation, but you can do things that help. So again, having realistic expectations, knowing that those little kiddos are going to be stressors in your day, and you're already going to be at a higher, mental capacity than most people who don't have kids, who aren't in that same situation. But then doing little things that will help bring you down to ground level again, even if it's just 10 minutes letting your kids play with something while you're doing breathing exercises instead of scrolling on your phone, or taking the kids for a walk and letting them kind of, discover things at a park while you're having some like grounding exercises, doing some mental work. It's going to be more moments throughout the day. You're not going to have these big chunks of time where you can, go sit in a bath or go get a massage. Like, that's probably not realistic for, a stay-at-home mom with 2 under 3. But having those little moments of grounding, doing things with the kids that are, less you entertaining them and them hopefully entertaining themselves for a second, so that you can get some time. I think also setting yourself up where there's less decisions throughout the day can be really helpful, because your mental capacity is just so high in that situation.
Great advice. Let's talk a little bit about nutrition in parenthood. Another comment that I got was, they said, ever since I had my daughter, I haven't been eating well because I haven't had the same time to devote to meal prep or making meals. So, do you have maybe any tips, any quick meal hacks that maybe help when time is short?
Yeah, this is something that I hear a lot, especially from my clients who are parents, where it seems like all of the time and energy goes to feeding the child. And at the same time, it's like, oh, I forgot to eat, or I didn't have time to feed myself. And one really simple rule that I give is, you eat when the baby eats, or you eat when your kid eats. And so, if you're making your kid something for lunch, that's a great cue to be like, oh, I probably need lunch too. And if you're making your kid something and maybe it's not the same thing that you want to eat, trying to make yourself a plate of something during that time can be really helpful, even if it's not the ideal meal. Ideally, we would have some sort of time to put something in the crock pot, or maybe make some protein over the weekend. Me and my husband specifically love to either smoke a whole bunch of protein or grill a whole bunch of protein on a weekend day, so that we can build meals around it throughout the week. So if I'm making my daughter something, then I can just be like, oh, let me hurry and put chicken and lettuce in a tortilla, and that's my protein, carbs, and veggie. And that's something so easy, as long as it's got the components prepared. So that would be my tip, is just having some easy components that you can just compile together for yourself while you're already feeding your kid. And then also just, a great segue into helping children have healthy eating habits, also showing like, hey, this is our protein, this is a carb, this is a veggie. You can help your kid kind of see that too, and then that helps remind you that you need those things.
Yeah. The first time I heard you eat when the kid eats is when I talked to Corey. So occasionally, for those of you listening, I'll check in. I have bi-weekly meetings with my coaches, and I remember Corey. That was some advice that he gave to his client, which was really cool. So it's nice. Obviously, I'm not surprised hearing you mirror that. So I think that's really great to do that. It is so important, because I hear that a lot too from parents, is that I forgot to eat, fed my kids, but I didn't eat. So yes, I think that making sure you're fed, and then also I was asked about modeling a healthy relationship with food for kids. So education obviously is important. You kind of already mentioned that. So educating yourself about nutrition is going to be important. Just like, you need to learn math so you can help them with their homework. You also got to know a little bit about nutrition so we can teach them healthier habits and more about nutrition. So any other tips on modeling a healthy relationship with food for your kids?
Yeah, it's something that we have really loved incorporating into our family is talking about what food does for us. So food gives us energy, food makes us strong. And so if we're having lunch before an activity, we talk to our daughter about like, okay, we got to eat so that we have all the energy to go swimming or to go play at the park. And so being really intentional about the words that you use around food, instead of just like, finish your food, finish your plate, we can't go until you're done. Giving meaning behind it and letting them know like what the food is for and why we're taking time to eat it. Because, especially for my 4-year-old, she doesn't like to do things that take time away from her activities. And so getting her to sit and eat a meal can sometimes be really difficult. But when we let her know, hey, you're going to have so much energy at swim lessons today because you finished your food, that really helps. And then, we do take her to the gym with us, and she sees us lifting weights and using dumbbells. And we tell her, like, oh, if you eat your steak and your chicken, then your muscles will get big and strong like Dada. And so just letting her know, like, that food has purpose and that it makes her big and strong and really fast. That's something that's been really cool to see because we now get to hear her talk about it.
On the other end of the spectrum here, Heather, is modeling a bad relationship with food. And this is hard because most of our clients come to us already struggling with that themselves. And so whether they're new parents or have been parents a while, that's something that their kids pick up. Kids are so smart. They're little sponges. And even if you think, oh, they don't know. They don't see me weighing myself. They don't see me, counting my calories. They do. And so, how do you, on the flip side, avoid teaching your kids a poor relationship with food? Teaching them food rules and showing them dieting and all that stuff, because that's pretty harmful for children.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we have so many clients who come to us and talk to us about, oh, my mom put me on a diet when I was 8 years old, or my dad put locks on the cabinets, things that are really harmful that stick with us for years and years. And so I think for me, coming up with specific boundaries around food, where I never want to tell my daughter, like, okay, you have to clean your plate, or don't eat too much, or you'll get XYZ. I don't want her to have that connection between food and what her body looks like, but more so what her body feels like. And so being really intentional about the vocabulary I use around food, and what food is for, what food is doing for us, rather than what food does to us, or being scared of food. We really don't use words like that. So I think, if you're concerned about passing on harmful habits or relationship with food to your kids, just being like, okay, like what was harmful for me, what did I see, and what do I want to do differently, and then having those boundaries and holding those boundaries.
I got a comment that said, I have a newborn and a 3-year-old. I think basically what I got from this comment was this person sometimes can't wait for hunger cues, or doesn't wait for the hunger cues because they're worried they may have to stop and help the baby. There may be something they have to, maybe the baby's crying and they got to go do something, and then they're hungry and it's too late. That's kind of what I got from this. So I'm sure there's kind of scenarios that you've run into like that. How do you listen to your hunger cues, and do they change when you're breastfeeding? Because we know you have to eat a little bit more when you're breastfeeding so you can maintain your milk supply. But how do those things relate?
This is going to be a little different for everyone, but what I have found to be the most helpful is having non-negotiables, knowing that for sure you need breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you don't necessarily have to wait for hunger cues for those 3 meals. That was helpful for me to have that structure. Like, I know I need breakfast, I know I need lunch, I know I need dinner. So if you're worried about like waiting until you're hungry and then being super busy with the baby, just having a plan, like, okay, I know that the baby is going to eat during this lunch period, and I also need to eat, and that's non-negotiable, even if I'm not super hungry, because I may not be able to eat in an hour when I'm hungry. So knowing that those 3 meals are taken care of. And then when you're breastfeeding, you're burning up to like 500 calories extra per day just by producing milk. And so if you're hungry on top of that, then definitely allowing yourself to have some snacks in between those non-negotiable meals, and having things that are easily just grab and go on hand that you can eat while you're breastfeeding. That's going to be really helpful because you're already, sitting down in a chair taking care of the baby. If you could have something nearby, even if it's not the most balanced snack, fed is best, and having something in between those times, basically to avoid being hangry, because then at that point you're too far gone and it's so much harder to take care of yourself when you're starving.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we don't want to mistreat the child, get angry at them because you're hangry because you didn't get a chance to eat.
Yep.
There's a lot to balance there. So let's talk a little bit about movement as a parent, because someone asked, they said, I'd like to lose weight. I have time and energy to diet, but no time to exercise. I could probably find the time, but I'm tired and I want to relax. How do you find the balance?
Well, we say this all the time, but exercise is a terrible tool for weight loss. And so if you're wanting to lose weight and all you have time to do is focus on your diet and nutrition, you're actually sitting pretty great if you want to reach those goals. It just takes a little bit of planning and having a good plan and having structure. But if you're wanting to add in a little bit of movement for, improved quality of life and getting stronger and being able to keep up with your kids and having more energy, that's more so when I would try and add in some movement. Something for me that helped when I was in the early trenches and I didn't have a lot of time was trying to do little movements during the day, whether that's 10 air squats while I'm waiting for the microwave to go off, or, I'm in the bathroom and I'm washing my hands, and instead of going straight back out to the baby, doing a couple of reverse lunges, just adding little movements here and there that made me feel like I was doing something throughout the day rather than trying to block out a full 45 minutes for a workout. So that's something that you can try. Also, going for walks with your baby or your kids to get some steps in, and then maybe trying to race them, adding in a little bit of like cardio, like, okay, I'm going to race you to the bottom of this hill. That really helps me get my steps in with my 4-year-old. So just having different ideas of what fitness looks like. It doesn't necessarily have to be a structured workout. It can be little movements throughout the day.
That's smart. I really like the creative ways that you have to get moving when you can't go to the gym. I think racing your kids or something, that's really cute. Picking them up, play with them. I don't have kids, but I have nieces and nephews. And I tell you, when I go over to their house, I have 8 of them and they're jumping all over me. And boy, I've had workouts that were less exhausting than playing with those kids. How else do you incorporate kids into movement? I know you mentioned bringing your daughter to the gym, but what can you do to maybe help them have fun with exercise? You mentioned going for walks, playing obviously with them is activity. Is there family activities you like to do with your husband? What do you like to do?
We love having dance parties. So me and my daughter will turn on music and just dance like crazy for, until we're tired. So that's a really great way to get movement in. And like you said, sometimes that's honestly harder than some of my cardio workouts I've done. And then she likes to be picked up and like put on my shoulders. And sometimes I'll do like squats and reverse lunges with her. And it's really fun because she gets to bounce around and she's really tall and she's excited about that. So there's those things that I've incorporated. I've also seen a lot of clients that will take their kids to like jump parks and trampoline parks and things like that and actually do it with them and not just like sit on the sidelines. That's a way that you can get movement in for sure.
Now, I think another big part of this, we mentioned guilt when it comes to, your nutrition, but also it is just as important to remove guilt if your workouts aren't perfect or perfectly consistent. How do you manage the negative mindset when it comes, when you miss a workout or you weren't very active that day?
It can be so hard, especially when workouts, they make me really happy. I really love lifting. I love lifting heavy weights. And so that was a really rough transition for me because, sometimes a lot of times with young kids, they get sick and you can't just, take them to the gym, to the daycare, to whatever. And so you do have to adjust and you have to do things from home. And I think just having that radical acceptance of like, this is how my life is. This is what I've chosen. And yes, like I chose to have these kids and my life has changed because of it and it's really hard, but that means that I can still be healthy. I just have to adapt. I can still be fit, but I just have to adapt and it's going to look different and that's okay. Because if you just hold yourself to these unrealistic expectations of, 4 perfect workouts a week, your kids are going to throw a curveball at you. That's not going to make that happen. And if you get upset or frustrated or feel like a failure because of it, you're that much likely to quit on your health and fitness journey rather than adjusting, adapting, having different expectations, and continuing forward. You're going to be so much more successful that way by just adapting. It's, adapt or die, like me and Corey say.
You mentioned, the mindset, and I completely agree with you. How do you deal with the emotional load of parenting and pregnancy? Because it's an entirely new thing that a lot of people have never had to do before. If it's your first pregnancy, it's a whole other ballgame. So when it comes to mental health, what should you know and what do you need to do to deal with it?
Oof. Yeah, that's a big topic. And, I feel like at the end of the day, we can have these tools and we can have these, things that we hope will help. But if you can get the extra support that you need from a therapist or a psychiatrist, I highly recommend doing that through pregnancy, through your early parenting journey. But the little things that can help is just allowing yourself to feel those feelings during pregnancy, and especially in those like early trenches of parenthood. You're gonna have big feelings. Your hormones alone are going to be worse than they were during puberty. So like your emotions are just wild. They're out of this world. And so accepting it for what it is, being like, okay, I am having these huge emotions today, totally okay. How can I take care of myself in this moment? And that's a question that I often ask myself a lot, especially during pregnancy. I feel like this time around has been a little bit easier. I think also just because I'm taking care of a toddler at this point, so I have less time to like sit in my feelings, to be honest. But it's really helpful just to try and check in with yourself and not be mad at yourself for feeling that way, not be mad at yourself for, crying during a commercial that doesn't seem that big of a deal, but your emotions are all over the place and just be like, okay, like I'm pregnant, it's cool. How can I take care of myself today?
How do you feel like self-talk plays a role in finding this balance? Do you feel like it's pretty impactful?
Oh, it's huge. I feel like self talk, because you're sitting in your pregnancy for 9 months, and a lot of times there's no one to really talk to about. I mean, you can talk to your partner about it, you can talk to your friends about it, but if they're not going through it, it's really hard to like really relay what's going through your mind and just how crazy you feel. And so you've really just got yourself in your corner. And if that corner is super negative self talk and you're getting at yourself for eating this or not doing this or sleeping too long, it's just going to create this like really negative environment for you to marinate in for the whole 9 months. Something that really helps me, and I honestly don't know if it's true, but I like to think that like my energy is impacting my baby's energy because we're literally like incubating them, right? And so if I'm super negative and I'm thinking super negatively and I'm coming at myself super negatively, thinking about like my baby and how that impacts my baby helps me like, okay, that's not what I want to model for them. And I want them to have a positive mindset and feel love and feel, acceptance. So that kind of like snaps me out of it. I again think that having support during this time is super, super beneficial, and being able to talk to other people as well, because pregnancy really does make you crazy. Like your emotions and your hormones are all over the place, and it's okay to feel that way.
So what are some tools that you have to avoid burnout?
Avoid burnout. I can't say that, I can completely avoid burnout. I think it happens to most pregnant people, most parents, a lot of the time, honestly. But I think having a plan, having a support system, communicating your needs, those are all like step one, just making sure that the load that you can share is being shared before you reach that breaking point, and then trying to make time for the things that make you feel human again. So oftentimes, our focus is on those other humans that we created that we're trying to take care of, that we forget that we're a person too. And so if you can have those quiet moments of grounding, if you can take time to do a 20-minute walk by yourself, that's going to go a really long way, just reminding yourself that you're a human, that you're an individual, and that you have needs. I think that really helps me. Again, like I said, I really hit the jackpot with my partner, and we're really good about creating time for each other and communicating when we need a little bit more time. Something we do is check-ins with each other. So I'll say, like, if I see that Corey is close to burnout, I'll ask him, hey, where are you at? And he'll give me a scale on 0 to 10, 0 being like, I am completely empty, I have nothing left, or like, 10, like I'm crushing it, I'm thriving. And then he'll do the same for me when he can see, the light fading in my eyes. He'll ask me where I'm at. And if we're at a higher percentage than the other person, then we'll like tell them to go and lay down in a dark room and we'll take over. So again, I know that not everyone's situation is like that, but really communicating with your circle, whether that's your partner or your parents or your friends, just having, other people who know that you may need a little extra support on those days really helps.
Yeah, it's so important, not only when you're pregnant, I think just generally speaking, it
Yeah.
is okay to ask for help and it's okay to accept help. That's a hard lesson to learn sometimes. I think,
Mm.
especially on a journey like this where it feels like you're supposed to be perfect at all times. And the reality is you can't, you won't. So when you're raising a whole nother human, asking for help and being able to accept help is so incredibly important. How do you feel like coaching others intersects with receiving support for you?
I think for me, for one thing, it helps me be connected to the things that I'm teaching, right? So if I'm talking to someone about their habits and their, how to handle burnout, it helps remind me like, oh yeah, like this is important for me too, because, these are the core principles. So I think that, teaching and practicing what I preach is really important to me, and just being really vulnerable with my clients, letting them know like, hey, I've struggled with this too, and this is my experience and how I've come up on, overcome it. I think also learning from other people's experiences, because parenting is going to look so different for your clients and for you and for the people around you. And so hearing their experiences and their struggles and their challenges has really helped me become a better coach and also a better, parent because of it, for sure.
When I spoke with Emily in our last little interview episode, I did a little bit of a rapid fire question. So I want to kind of do that with you. Not questions itself, but just a couple of quick answers. What are your, let's say, top 3 tips for pregnancy health?
Number 1, take it day by day and adjust expectations. Not every day is going to look the same. Number 2, listen to your body's cues, trust them, honor them. Number 3, set yourself up for easy choices the best you can.
What about 3 tips for maintaining health when you're parenting?
Number 1, like I've talked about a lot today, establish your support system and expectations, communicate your needs. Number 2, adapt or die. Change your routines, accept that this is your life and it's different, and chasing your old life is going to make you miserable. And then number 3, probably plan ahead as best you can. Really try to set yourself up for those hard days.
All right. Any advice for parents or pregnant folks who feel like they are failing?
I feel like the feeling of failure comes from expectations, whether they're from ourselves or from societal pressures. And so I think especially these days, and the way that our world is, just having really healthy boundaries around social media. If you're feeling like you are failing, look at where that comparison is coming from. If you are feeling like you're failing in your fitness journey as a new time parent, if you're only following people on social media who have no responsibilities, no kids, and have a completely life set up than you and don't understand what it's like to have kids, maybe changing your social media preferences and the people that you follow, because you're comparing yourself to people who are literally not in your situation. So having really clear boundaries and seeing where that feeling of failure is coming from. If it's your own expectations, having radical acceptance of what your life is like and giving yourself grace is really important. Just being kind, because what you're doing is really hard. Like it's hard to change your life to accommodate a whole new human and take care of them and keep them alive and make them happy. And especially as mothers, there's not a lot of gratitude in what we do. There really isn't a lot of recognition. It's just kind of expectations from others and from your kid. And so having that gratitude for yourself, having that grace, and adjusting your expectations will help so you don't feel like a failure, and celebrating those small wins. Like, you know what? My kid is happy today. My kid is fed today. I'm fed today. We are crushing it. Because if you feel like you're failing, it's usually coming from those expectations from somewhere else. For sure.
Any words of encouragement for anyone struggling to balance it all?
It's hard. You're not going to be perfect at it. There's going to be really rough days, but you're doing something that not a lot of people can do. It's really hard work. And the fact that you are still trying and you're still showing up for yourself and for your kids, you're still creating goals, and you're, listening to stuff like this or consuming content like this shows that you're still trying to show up for yourself. And just keep pushing forward. Take it day by day. Sometimes it might be 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And that's just the way that life works, especially with kids. So keep showing up, keep trying, keep making small goals, and also celebrate those little wins.
Amazing. Heather, thank you so much for being here and speaking on such an important topic. I'm really glad you are here. Just a reminder to anybody who's listening, if you'd like to work with Heather or myself, you can apply for coaching. The link to do so is in the show notes. You can also find it at adamwrightfitness.com. You don't have to be pregnant. That's not a requirement. if you are, that is not a disqualification either. So I would love to speak with you and see if it's a good fit for you. So feel free to reach out to us. Other than that, thank you guys for listening. We will be back next Saturday. Heather, thanks again.
Thanks for having me. This has been great.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Showing Up Anyway. You can find it for free on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And wherever you're listening, if you like the show, I'd love it if you gave me a 5-star review, because that does help other people find the show, and hopefully it'll help change their life just like you're looking to change yours. If you're listening on Spotify, though, you can follow me and tap the bell icon so you get notifications when new episodes come out. I'm Coach Adam. Remember, when things get challenging, keep showing up anyway.